So this is probably the most random thought you'll hear all day, but when I look at the Mavic 3 series, I'm kind of reminded of the OG Power Rangers when they used to transform into their Ranger forms and introduce what they were supposed to be. And this is pretty much because there are so many different kinds of Mavic 3s and they all have slightly to completely different feature sets, but are nonetheless Mavic 3s. This series did start with one though, and that is the Mavic 3, this one right here, the Mavic 3. Unfortunately, you can no longer find the original Mavic 3 on DJI's website since it's been removed in favor of the Mavic 3 Classic and Mavic 3 Pro, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't find it refurbished or purchase one used. In this review, we're going to talk about why I decided against going with the Mavic 3 Pro, and the Classic was never going to be a choice for me, but why I still think that the Mavic 3, this one that we're talking about right here, is still the best one to consider in terms of balance, if you can get your hands on one. Just FYI, I will be making references to the Mavic 3 Classic, Mavic 3 Pro, and the DJI Air 3, since these are the drones most people will be looking at in comparison to this Mavic 3 right here. The one constant between the main Mavic 3 series is the design. Aside from the differences in camera count, you'll notice that this drone feels premium and looks premium. Sure, you'll be flying this and these aspects probably won't matter, but they do mean something when you're about to spend as much as you're going to. If we take a look around the device, you'll see the same dark gray chassis, the same 8 obstacle avoidance sensors, the same vent for the fan, the same bottom facing lights, and all of the other design choices that come with the Mavic 3, the main Mavic 3 series, the prosumer Mavic 3 series. All three of them even take the same exact 5,000 milliamp battery. However, there is a difference in battery life between them, and we will get to that later. The point to drive home here is that aside from the camera arrays, you won't see much of a difference between each version, and that's a great thing when it comes to accessories that have to work with the body of the drone, and of course, dealing with things like ND filters that fit over the camera will be a different story. One thing that you will see a difference in is the weight between each version. The 3 Classic and 3 are both 895 grams, while the 3 Pro comes in at 958 grams. These weight differences may not make much of a difference when carrying it, but do make a significant difference when flying it, because the fact of the matter is that with the increase in weight comes an increase in the power needed to create lift when flying your drone. As far as controllers go, I've been using the DJI RC when flying the Mavic 3, and I have to say I quite enjoy the experience. Not having to use my phone and worry about notifications is well worth purchasing this controller separately, especially if you don't want to spend for the RC Pro. As it stands, the RC is one of the 3 controllers that work with the Mavic 3, and it's the one that provides the best balance between price and functionality, which is what we're talking about anyway. My only issue with it is how slow it can be with basic operations sometimes. A simple thing like changing cameras or getting out of camera view to get into the album can cause moments of lag that can be significant enough to want to just use the controller to fly and nothing else. Of course, I can only really say this after having used the DJI RC2, however, that controller is currently only compatible with the Air 3 and the Mini 4 Pro at the time of this video. I still think that it will be compatible with the Mavic 3 and some other drones, but only time will tell. For now though, I'd recommend getting the RC if you decide to go with this drone, or the RC Pro, since it's supposed to provide the best experience DJI has to offer with the drones it's compatible with. Since the camera is the biggest reason someone might even consider any of these Mavic 3s, let's talk about what you get with the Mavic 3 compared to the Classic and Pro. The main micro 4/3 Hasselblad sensor will be the same across all 3 of these drones. This is pretty much where most of your money is going, and it's not hard to see why. I think that it wouldn't be a stretch to say that the Mavic 3 Classic and Pro actually get this sensor from the Mavic 3, since the Mavic 3 existed first anyway. This is the camera you'll be using mainly, and the one that will give you the utmost quality, dynamic range, and overall data-packed image for editing. One of the reasons I said that the Mavic 3 Pro provides the best balance is because you do also get a 7x camera with it. This isn't something that's available on the Classic, and though it is on the 3 Pro and is better in some ways, it's been improved, this one is still good enough for when you want to use it to get closer to something without getting closer to it. I'll admit that I don't use it anywhere near constantly, but for the times I need a longer zoom than just 1x, it does come in handy and has worked out for me adequately. Now, what you aren't getting on the Mavic 3 is the 3x camera that comes with the 3 Pro. This 3x camera is the same exact sensor you'd get if you were to purchase the Air 3. And during my time with the Air 3, I personally found that I only used it a handful of times. I'm not saying that it's a bad camera at all. It's actually quite the opposite, even though it still won't provide as much dynamic range and information as the main camera on the Mavic 3 series. It's a cool thing to have when you want to do something like a parallax much easier, or get close to something without getting close to it, but honestly, I'd rather just buy the Air 3 since both of its sensors will end up having the same exact quality since they are the same exact sensor size and share the same exact color profiles. Of course, this is something that probably won't matter to someone who does know how to color grade, which is not myself, of course, but just wanted to put that out there either way. If you are interested in learning about the Air 3, then you can check out my review of it in the top right corner of the screen and in the description. If you are interested in what the quality difference between the Mavic 3 series main camera and the Air 3's main camera are, then I also have a comparison of footage between this Mavic 3 we're talking about and the Air 3's main camera. This will give you an idea of what I was talking about when I said the 3x camera on the Mavic 3 Pro is the same as what's on the Air 3. As far as other features go, you're still getting the same set of advanced features regardless of which Mavic 3 you pick. That means you'll be able to set up and execute waypoints the same and also use active track in every different direction you can imagine. The only difference in using these features is the kind of zoom you can utilize depending on which drone you have. If you're using the 3 Classic, then you're only getting one view anyway, while with the 3 you get either your 1x or 7x, and with the 3 Pro you're going to get that 1x, 3x, or your 7x. As far as other features go, you're still getting the same set of advanced features regardless of which Mavic 3 you pick. That means you'll be able to set up and execute waypoints the same and also use active track in every different direction you can imagine. The only difference in using these features is the kind of zoom you can utilize depending on which drone you have. This means that with the 3 Classic and 3, you're only getting active track on the 1x camera, while on the Mavic 3 Pro, you do have it on the 1x and the 3x camera. Both the Mavic 3 and Mavic 3 Pro cannot track with the 7x camera because that would just be weird anyway. Like, if you're doing that, I think you're really trying to like stalk someone, and you should, I'm not going to go forward with that. Vision transmission wise, you're getting DJI 03 Plus, which tops out at 1080p 60 frames per second. Range tops out at 15 kilometers, at least in the US. The 1080p 60 FPS feed quality is something you'll get on all 3 Mavic 3s, just in case you are wondering. All 3 Mavic 3s have a level 5 wind resistance rating, which equates to about 19 to 24 mile/hour winds. This pretty much means that these drones will do well in even the highest of winds. However, I definitely wouldn't push it and put them in something like a hurricane or something like that. Battery life. So battery life is the biggest reason as to why I made this review, and pretty much the Mavic 3 Classic and the Mavic 3 can achieve a maximum of 46 minutes of flight time and a maximum of 40 minutes while hovering. The Mavic 3 Pro has what seems like slightly less battery life, with a maximum flight time of 43 minutes and a maximum hovering time of 37 minutes. These battery life specs are based on DJI's internal testing, which consists of sustained flight speeds at 32 kph in an environment without wind, no obstacle avoidance sensors being used, no air sense being used, and camera settings set to 1080p, 24 frames per second. These might seem like some random specs to throw out there, but what I'm getting at here is that the Mavic 3 is still the most balanced of the three, because even though it does have these two cameras, it still achieves the maximum time a consumer Mavic 3 can get. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, 3 minutes really isn't that big of a difference. And yeah, I'd agree with you to an extent. Personally, I'd say that this is only true if you either meet the same parameters or similar to DJI's testing, or if you aren't somewhere with harsh sunlight and tons of wind. The 3 minutes actually adds up when you're trying to get that last shot of video, since external factors like wind and excessive heat can rapidly degrade battery performance. One example I can give is when I was trying to do a waypoint mission using a battery that was 53% from some flights I took before. I decided to do a test and see if I could both plan this waypoint mission and execute it. The area I did this in did have quite a bit of wind and the heat was above 80 degrees. Luckily, I was actually able to pull off this mission using the battery life I had left, but in the same conditions with the 3 Pro, I might not have been able to do that because that 3 minutes less of battery life can drop much faster than you think, since it would have to contend with external elements while balancing the extra weight difference when compared to the other two Mavic 3s. Of course, this is all theoretical, but I think it's something to give thought to when you have these moments when you're flying your drone farther than normal, have unexpected wind behavior, and when you have excessive heat. And also, I have been watching some videos on the Mavic 3 Pro to see if it's a viable upgrade for me, and battery life seems to be the biggest pain point for most people. Like I said, 3 minutes really may not seem like a lot, but it can be plenty in certain situations and depending on how you fly. And you'll never really know how you're going to fly unless you're going to fly somewhere. All right, so that is all I have to say to make the case for buying the original Mavic 3 in 2023. That rhymes. And why I think it does provide the best balance between the 3 Classic and 3 Pro. I'm pretty sure my logic here is probably flawed in some way, but I made this video for potential Mavic 3 buyers and for those who already have a Mavic 3 and may not have considered some of the factors I talked about with the other two. Now, let me be clear. I am not trying to speak against the 3 Classic or the 3 Pro, and I do think that they are great drones that provide unique options at different price points. It's just that I feel like if you can find the Mavic 3 for at least $1,639, which is the same price you can get it for on DJI if they were still selling it, it becomes a better value than the Mavic 3 Classic, since you do get that extra 7x camera and the same maximum battery life a Mavic 3 can achieve. The Mavic 3 Pro's 3 camera setup is nice, but that 3x camera is pretty much the same as what's on the Air 3, and the upgrades made to the 7x camera could come in handy, but again, this is only if you even intend to use both of those cameras constantly. In my case, I feel that it's a better thing to do to just buy the Air 3, since you'll have 2 cameras with matching quality for more advanced image manipulation later, and better battery life than even what's on any of the Mavic 3s. You also get that 20-kilometer range if you really need it for some reason. The best flight mode kit for the Air 3 is also $50 cheaper than the regular price of the Mavic 3 Classic, and that kit is going to give you way more than just buying the Mavic 3 Classic by itself. Don't quote me on this, but I'm also sure that DJI Care Refresh would be cheaper than just getting it on something like the Mavic 3 Pro. Like I said, I'm not completely ruling out the Mavic 3 Pro for myself and may possibly look into it in the future, but for me, the Mavic 3 Classic was never going to be an option since it wasn't out at the time I got my Mavic 3, and even if it was, I'd still go with the Mavic 3 because they are just so close in price. All right, that's enough rambling from me though. I do hope this video was helpful in giving you information to make an informed decision on whether to purchase the Mavic 3 either refurbished or even secondhand if you can find it cheaper and can, automatically tell what's wrong with it if there's anything. All in all, what I'm really saying is that This really does provide the best balance between functionality, features, and efficiency. I'm also kind of sure that's why DJI doesn't sell it anymore. One thing I will say before ending this video is I personally would not pay above $1,700 for a Mavic 3. So if you find one for anything above that, then you may as well just go ahead and then get the 3 Pro and learn how to work around its limitations. Okay, so I'm done for real now. Thank you for watching this video, and as I said, I hope it was helpful to you, and wherever you are in the world, have a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, a great night, and I will see you in the next video. And don't forget to refer to the description for the videos I mentioned in this one if you're looking for even more details. Thank you for watching again.